everybody, SonGoshuaku here, and welcome to our podcast review for My Hero Academia Season 2's Versus Hero Killer Arc. But first, make sure to hit that subscribe button followed by hitting the notification bell so that way you are notified as soon as my content is released. We are back after a 12-month hiatus. That's right, a year since our last My Hero Academia podcast to go ahead and give you all some much-needed audio entertainment through these most troubling times. Please welcome back my co-host, Rebecca RoseGold.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Yes, this is going to be awesome. We're going to break down the Hero Killer arc now. As we stated in our previous podcast for My Hero, is that we love villains that are not cookie cutter, I want to rule the world type of villains, because that's exactly what we don't get in this arc, and it is great. So let's start off with the opening and ending theme songs as we did here. Basically, opening song number 3. This is why you're here. How do you pronounce this? Is it Sora ni ne ataba? Atabe?
Sora ni utaba. Actually, utaba. Utaba? Yeah. I think so.
By Amazarashi?
Amazarashi, yeah.
Okay, That's why she's here, because she basically has she has all the Japanese know-how, at least more than I do, to pronounce all this. So that song right there was opening 3. I liked it. It was pretty cool. Did you like it? I know you're a big Peace Sign fan.
Yeah, that's the thing, yeah. I think Peace Sign is just my favorite one, so everything else, I'm pretty partial to that one, but from what I remember, this one was okay. Like, I was like, oh, all right, that's nice, but it just, Peace Sign was my favorite one, so I'm always going back to that one.
And I take back what I said. Kinda. I do think the songs peaked with the day, but still I did enjoy the whole thing where they did all the other openings in Peace Sign. I have enjoyed it because I've been listening to them nonstop. Ending song 2. Let's see if I can pronounce this right. Date Arashi no Hiro by Lisa, better known as Risa Oreba. Did I say that right?
Close. It's Date Atashi no Hiro by Lisa, and then it'd be Risa. What was it? Oribe. Yeah.
Oribe? Okay. That is why she's here, because I don't know how to say this stuff. Now, we were actually a big fan of this, talking about, because this is the one where I believe they are, like, it's like a fantasy, and it's they're like knights, and I'm like, oh, why? I would love to see an OVA special of this. It's always a blast to watch.
Yeah, I feel the same way when I saw it. I was like, oh, and obviously it sounds really cool. I think it's my favorite ending song, honestly. But just seeing it, I'm like, dude, this fantasy arc, like their arc, whatever. They should make it an arc, honestly. It'd be really cool. But like you said, an OVA would be awesome to see.
Yeah, the art was great. So let's go ahead and get started into the arc here. Actually, the manga chapter, this takes place during the manga chapters 45 to 59 and anime episodes 26 to 33. So we start off here with the internships. There's a lot of internships, and we're going to kind of just, with these podcasts, focus on the main stuff. So this will be where we can talk about if there's anything in the internships that stand out. For me, there are 2, maybe 2 or 3. I forget the guys' names, the ones that can make their bodies hard. I thought the guy the hero they had to be would seem like a pain in the butt to deal with, always on them about every single thing. I thought that comedy was great. But the 2 that stand out to me are, ironically, Rebecca, the person you beloved in the show so much, and the person you can't stand so much in the show. That's Mineta and Bakugo. Now, for Mineta, what I've really come to enjoy about this character's comedy is he is disgusting, his perverted ways, but what really works great is the fact that, having watched this series now completely in English and Japanese, everything that he tries to do fails, and that was the brilliance here. So he gets for his internship Midnight, and I guess basically she's supposed to be like this seductress or whatever, and some people are into that, being slaves and everything. But here's the thing, Mineta, if I said his name right, doesn't, though Rebecca probably thinking, who cares if you say his name wrong?
I know, right? Literally. I was like, whatever. Just call him that little purple guy.
But yeah, so he does end up becoming a slave for Midnight, but not the slave in the sense that you probably think he wants to be. He becomes a literal house slave. While she's sitting on the couch just being lazy, she's got him cleaning the dishes and doing all the chores, boring stuff around the house. I was laughing my butt off, and the guy's crying because this is not what he envisioned when he was told he's gonna spend a whole weekend or week with Midnight. I thought this was hilarious and just really great. Like, if you're gonna have a character that way, the fact that it really shows a good message that, hey, it doesn't pay to be a pervert and everything, because nothing good comes from it with him. And then the next one is Bakugo. Now, as a WWE professional wrestling fan, usually when you have a character who, using some wrestling terminology here, who is booked strong like Bakugo, he was a huge part of the first couple of arcs. Here, Kohei Horikoshi puts him in the back seat, basically. He takes a back seat and ends up becoming this comedic role where he's with the genius and they're trying to fix his hair, and his hair is he is so stubborn.
Yeah,
so
his poor
stubborn.
Hair
his
too.
hair is stubborn too. But it made sense. They wanted to like get that attitude in order, so it made sense. It was very comedic. Bakugo taking a comedic backside here. I wonder if, like in wrestling, if they do this to a wrestler who is very promoted very seriously on WWE TV, and then all of a sudden for the next month there seem to be playing in the background, you get a lot of fans who are going like, oh, they're burying him, like, would they do the same thing with Baku? I wonder if there was My Hero fans like, he was such a big part of the first two arcs, how are you going to put him in this comedy stuff? But I figured Bakugo was probably going to come back and be another big integral part of the story. I mean, he is a huge part of Midoriya's whole arc and everything, so I appreciate it, because it really allowed, as we're going to get into this arc, to allow the focus to be on other characters, which this series so desperately needed after introducing as many characters as they have. So I'm okay with Bakugo taking a backseat to a more comedy role, as it really allowed for some great character development for some of the characters we'll talk about. So I'll pass it over to you, Rebecca Beck. Was there anything that stood out among you when it came to the internships, or if not, did you have anything you liked? I really would love to hear what you thought about Mineta not getting his way, and Bakugo, your favorite character, basically taking a backseat in the story.
Well, I remember because for the manga, I heard that they really didn't show the actual internships at all. Like, I heard for the manga, it was just like kind of talked about like, oh, how was your week? My week was good. But in the anime, they kind of took the time to show you what everybody did. And personally, I really like that. Yeah, I mean, with Mineta, obviously, anytime he doesn't get his way, I'm happy. Like, I'm like, yeah, serves you right. Like, so I'm fine about that. And then honestly, with Bakugo, I didn't look at it like, oh, he's taking a back seat to this. Like, why? I felt like they took a lot of time to show what Bakugo was up to. And personally, I liked it. Like, it kind of like put Bakugo in his place a little bit, where it's like, okay, well, you can't just explode all the time. And hey, let's fix your hair because you got to be presentable. Like, they're kind of like trying to change him up. So I found it funny, and I actually liked that they were showing him, like, it was showing like a new side of Bakugo. Like, yeah, he's really angry and he blows up a lot, but also like he kind of had to learn like, okay, we got to rein it in sometimes as a hero and stuff. So I like that they showed that. And then yeah, pretty much because I'm trying to think, what other characters did they show for the...
I know they had there was the girls who thought that they were doing intense training with one of the other female top heroes, but in reality she was just trying to teach him how to look good for the camera and everything, and one of the girls was in denial the whole time that this was leading to something bigger. So yeah, and
that was actually kind of interesting to see, because you're thinking there, wow, you're with the pro hero, like I'm gonna learn some stuff, and actually some of it is the boring side, where I feel like that's how it is even with like acting, right? Where everyone's like, I'm going to be a big movie star and it's going to be awesome. But no, there's a lot of boring stuff that goes into acting too, where it's like, okay, now I got to call my agent. Now this, I got to go to so there's a lot of boring aspects of it. And I like that they showed that too, where you're like, oh, you think that being a hero is all about being a hero? No, like sometimes it's the publicity. And I'm like, wow, that's probably right, So I like that they added like every like little aspect of it. And then Uraraka, I forget who she went with.
Yeah, she was with someone who taught her more hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah,
which
but I forget his name,
that played a bigger role. I think we could talk about that in the next arc because some of this training comes back. We'll talk about that in the next podcast.
But anyway,
because that comes back.
Yeah, I guess just really quick, I like that it was showing her where it's like, it kind of changed her aspect of, or her like perspective on how to fight and stuff. So that's what I'm saying. I like that they showed that with each character. Like everybody was learning something new, even if it was something they didn't expect. Like, oh geez, like I didn't know that, the like hero aspect was sometimes it's just the fashion of it, or sometimes it's that. So I like that everybody learned something new in their own ways. And then Mineta, I was like, whatever. I'm like, whatever happens to this guy, it doesn't matter. But so yeah, I enjoyed the arcs for that.
Good points. And we're gonna get over here to the dynamic between Shigaraki and the hero killer Stain. Now this was really great stuff, and where this whole arc, even though it's it's only a few episodes long, but man is it good. So I should mention everyone that both Rebecca Beck and I have not read the manga, so we're only giving you the anime perspective. That being said, Shigaraki meets Stain. I think they introduced a set of new hero villains and everything, but I didn't put their names down, so I forgot them. But this is mostly about Shigaraki and Stain. So we get two different ideals here. So you have Shigaraki, who basically wants chaos, destruction, just to rain all that on with death. Then you had Stain here, who basically wants to fight Shigaraki because they're trying to recruit him into the League of Villains, but he sees you villains and heroes, you're all the same. You're all fakes. You're all in it for your own personal gain and everything, and he basically only wants the true heroes to fight him. And I thought this was a great start. You're introducing we already got introduced to Shigaraki, but we have two antagonists here, essentially two villains who have two different ideals. So now it's like its story's no longer about the heroes versus the League of Villains. It's the hero versus the League of Villains, and then this guy who's kind of in that gray area in between, and he's insane. We know what he did at the end, but man, I really like this dynamic. I thought this was really great stuff. Some of the best parts of this arc that shine. How did you like the way they did the whole introduction to Shigaraki and Stain meeting, and when they had their meeting in the hideout and everything, and we're introduced to their ideologies?
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, it was really interesting to see that contrast between both of them. And then what I think just what makes it like a villain interesting is when it kind of messes with you and you kind of understand where that villain's coming from. Where Shigaraki, I was like, okay, what do you want here? Oh, let's just make chaos. Like, oh, that's great for you. But with Stain, where it's like, no, like you're all the same, and like only the true hero. I want a true hero who really who like isn't just in it for the fame. Like you actually want to help people and stuff. So that to me, I was like, wow, like when you start to kind of like not side with the villain, but you kind of get their perspective. I think that's what makes a villain most interesting, where you're like, I can totally see how you can go that route. Like if you went so extreme, like I feel like, because each of us has it in our head where you're like, oh, I want the genuine person. We don't take it that far, right? We're not going to be like Stain, start killing everybody who's not genuine. But you can see how someone can take that route. Whereas Shigaraki, I feel like I don't connect with. Like I'm like, oh, I don't just want chaos for the sake of chaos. Like, but if you have, like if chaotic things happen because you have an idea, your idea is, oh, like let's get rid of all the fakes out there. You see where that's coming from. I just feel like that was really interesting.
Oh yeah, for sure, I agree, and that's what made this so. Like you were saying, we don't like these cookie cutter villains. Like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Although I mean, I get to poke fun. I love the Stain design, and I don't know if I mentioned this in the last podcast, but the way his mask is, and the fact that he has no nose, he really reminded me of a Ninja Turtle.
I think you did mention it. I remember that.
So let's get on here to next up is Midoriya's training with Gran Torino. Now, one of the big things we talked about in the last arc was there's all this heat, to use a wrestling term, heat that comes down on Midoriya for using his powers. But if you look at the story, he didn't do it because he wanted to. He did it because he had to in order to save his life or save the lives of someone he's trying to protect. And it's like everybody's doing a lot of pointing your finger like, you're being irresponsible with your power, you shouldn't use it like that, but nobody's telling him how to use this possible. So a grand shout out to Gran Torino for being the first person in the story to step up and actually teach Midoriya how it's done. So the introduction to Gran Torino was hilarious. He's this crippled old man that walks around and you think he can't remember anything, and then as soon as it's fight time, he's flying around like he's some sort of lightweight, or like, it's crazy. I thought it was hilarious the way they've done it. I always love stuff like that. If you've ever seen, there's been like parodies on podcast on like YouTube where you'll have people show up to the basketball court and they're dressed in disguise as old people walking around. As soon as the bell rings, they're playing basketballs like they're a bunch of 20-year-olds, and it's because there's 20-year-olds under the disguise. I really love that Gran Torino was presented in that way to make you think he's some decrepit old man or something, but he's not. And the wisdom he used was really great. I thought the whole thing where I think he kept freezing something in the microwave was hilarious, and then Midoriya eventually learns that if he starts concentrating one for all in his legs, then he might be able to control it better. I really loved it. This is great humor and just once again showing the strength of Midoriya's ability to think and how good he is at figuring stuff out. I really loved it. And you see what I'm talking about here? The fact, and this is how things work in life. You know, people go through things and it's easy for people to criticize people for doing something. But when you take the time with somebody and really work with them, and you can bring out something they never knew they had inside them. And that's what Gran Torino did. He didn't point his finger at everyone like everyone was doing with Midoriya, even All Might. You know, he couldn't really show him. He took the time, and through that, Midoriya was able to learn how to better utilize it. I really loved it. So what did you think about the whole Gran Torino and Midoriya training?
I liked hearing your perspective from it, only because, like, when I first saw it, I got annoyed about how predictable it felt, where I was like, oh, like right when you meet him, right, he's, like, on the floor, like, Midoriya starts screaming, like, like, this guy's on the ground.
Shonen manga tropes, huh?
Yeah, where it's like, in my head, I'm like, oh, let me guess. Like, he looks really useless, but actually he's really good. And that's exactly what it was. I'm like, I guess there's no other way to do it, though. Because what, if you first meet him and he's amazing from the start, that's also, like, another cliche. So I'm like, I don't know. Maybe there's no way I could be satisfied in this. But I was like, oh. Like, and then once you get to know him, I'm like, okay, I do like Gran Torino. But hearing it from you, I'm like, I guess you're right. It was kind of funny. Like, and I did, yeah, there were some laughs. Like, I was like, okay, yeah, I guess you're right. Like, I started, like, when I heard your perspective, I'm like, man, yeah, you're right. It was funny. But my first instinct was like, oh, it was like a cliche that I was like, meh. But honestly, there's no other way to do it. So in the end, I did like their meeting, and I'm glad, like you said, like, everybody's like, hey, Midoriya, you can't do that. Okay, cool. And even All Might's like, you shouldn't do that, young Midoriya. All right, well, teach him not to use all of his power. Oh, you can't teach him? Okay, well, like, what do you mean, you know? So I'm glad at least somebody was able to teach him, because poor Zuko.
And you're right, that is an anime trope, but you know what? We grew up watching Dragon Ball, Master Roshi. Master Roshi, not just Roshi. There's so many animes. The old Master, we know these old guys in anime can throw down. So I just enjoyed it for the hilariousness of it. But let's move on to the big fight. Man, this is a short arc. We're already on the main event here. All right, so we get to let's break this last fight here. We're gonna break this fight up, and I'm glad I rewatch this again so it's fresh in my mind. Iida versus Stain. Now, we talked about character development. We see a darker side to Iida because he's so far, you know, like I said, he can be the character that he's so straightforward and has to do everything precise, but he's always a genuinely good-hearted guy that really cares for his friends. But in this arc, he is filled with revenge and hatred, and man, he because I think they released the Nomu. Shigaraki releases the Nomu, and everybody's going all over the city basically to try and save him. And Iida, I think Stain was trying to get one of the heroes. He found one of the heroes who was basically there as one just plot device. You know, he was kind of so much like Yamcha, utilizes Yamcha pretty much in this one. He was just sitting there bloody telling him like, oh, everybody,
the best.
you guys shouldn't do all that. Hey, I like Yamcha. I'm not gonna be one of those fans out there that will bash. Yamcha was a very important part of the story because Yamcha got over the main villain. If Yacha didn't take a hit for the team, we could have not known how devastating those villains were from the start. But that's another story discussion for another time. Getting back to My Hero Academia. Let's see, Iida versus Stain. What I liked about this fight is Iida is filled with so much hatred, and Stain, he's like, why are you after me? Like, he's like, he's telling me how you killed my brother, you almost nearly murdered my brother. He's like, shouldn't you care more about hurting him? But yet you come here about revenge. The audacity of Stain, like, literally to go up and knock out somebody's loved one with like a sledgehammer or something. I know Triple H reference from WWE, but was to come and hurt them in front of their eyes, and then you get in a fit and want to rip this person's head off. Why are you coming at me like that? Why are you coming at me like that? Shouldn't you care about attending to your loved one instead of coming at me? It's like you just basically literally almost murdered the person's brother. Like, of course they're gonna come at you. And that is the brilliance of this character. That's why I love this villain. The fact that he has the audacity to come at people like, why are you coming at me? Like, when he's the one who initiated them to put them in this result. But of course, Iida is blinded by hatred, and man, he like paralyzes him, and out of nowhere, and I thought when he was licking the blood, he was just doing it because he was sick and twisted. But we eventually find out more about that, and Iida is just on the ground paralyzed until, of course, Midoriya saves him. So before we go to the next stage of this fight, what was your thoughts on Stain versus Iida? Like I said, I loved it. A really great way to get heat on, like in wrestling they call getting heat on the heel, being the bad guy. This is a great way to get heat on the villain here, because I feel like a lot of us, I don't know if all the audience felt, I'm just like feeling like, man, the audacity of this guy, like, you're the cause of this. What did you think?
Oh yeah, I know what you're saying. Where I liked seeing that different side of Iida, just like you were saying, where he's always like the class president type, like, hey, stop talking now, everyone, we need to do this, the teacher's here, or whatever. So he was always like, keeping everybody in line. And then this was a time when he was out of line, like he was just kind of like, okay, he just went off the deep end, like dark. And I think for me, it's easy to watch this show and then forget that they're kids. And when I saw this, I was like, oh, wow, they are just kids. Because to me, it sounds like a silly thing. Like, rationally right now, I'm not like...
Iida looks like he should be 18 years old, just pointed out.
Well, they all look like that. That's right. Why they're all, like, aged up, I think. But just with Iida, I'm like, just thinking realistically as an adult, you're like, okay, I'm angry, but you know what? If I go into this fight right now, I'm unprepared. I'm gonna get killed. Like, I'm not gonna do that. But to him, he didn't have. He's just like, no, like, how could he do that to my brother? I'm just gonna attack. And to me, I'm like, oh, that's such a childish thing. And that's when I was like, man, but they are just kids. Like, you're 14, 15. I forget how old they are now. I think they're 15. So you're 15. You're having these like just irrational thoughts. Like, I'm gonna go after this professional murderer. Because, I don't know, professional murder, whatever. He's like a pro villain, I guess, I'm going to go after a pro villain because why? Because he hurt your brother and that sucks. But listen, your brother's fine. Like he said, why don't you focus on your brother? Why don't you focus on getting him better instead of just, jumping headfirst into something you're not prepared for? And that to me, yeah, it was a good reminder of like, wow, they're still kids,
Definitely. And then we get to the Midoriya and Stain part where Midoriya in typical fiction comes in right at the very... there was a couple of cliche comes in where it just gets ridiculous. Kind of like first Midoriya comes in and stops him right at the right moment. And then right when he's about to get the next kill, you have Todoroki comes in, and even the hero code's like, there's been a lot of distractions today. But hey, it's about superheroes, so how can you gotta have that last minute saving.
Yeah.
And I like that they explained it too. Todoroki's like, he says, Midoriya, he says you should be a little bit more precise and not just give out your location. He says if you would have had more details, I wouldn't have arrived nearly at the last minute. So I love that the show pokes fun at itself like that.
But can I just say I love that Deku was like, let me send that to Todoroki, like let me just send it, And I love that Todoroki just sees it and he's like, my friend needs me, I gotta go. Like, he just knew. And if you ever had a really close friend like that, where you just like, somebody says something and then from across the room you look at your best friend and you're like, yeah, like you both have that same thought. Like, I feel like that's how Todoroki, like literally Deku sends him that and he's like, oh, he just sent me a location. That obviously means I'm supposed to go to him. Like, obviously. Like, it's just a funny thing. Like, I love that Todoroki just came running to his help, you know?
And here, all this time, I thought he sent it to a pro hero. I'm like, why is Todoroki here? And then he's like, don't worry, the pro hero's coming. You get into like it's Frieza, 5 minutes, I'll destroy the planet. All right, another 5 minutes, Goku, and the planet will blow. Like, I'm like, where's the pro heroes? But anyways, yeah, the Midoriya and Stain fight was pretty cool. Midoriya was trying to utilize his legs. I think Iida mentioned that he used one of Bakugo's techniques. So I really love that they do callbacks like this, showing you that everything you saw before, there are things that mattered, and it's very important. I love that they let the audience know that things that you see in the series matter and how the characters develop. So that was really cool. But I don't think there was much of a fight between Midoriya, because yeah, Todoroki comes in and that's where it becomes basically a 3-on-1 match. I mean, the choreography in this fight is amazing. This fight was just intense. I love how they're able to blend the emotional music, the emotions, the flashbacks, and keep the action going, you know? Unlike, what was it, the Naruto series, which was really known for slowing down the action and then have these long flashbacks. They have the flashbacks going as the characters are fighting, as you're in your mind, so you're seeing what the characters are thinking in their mind. I really love that. So we eventually find out that when he licks blood, he can paralyze them. And I put here in the notes that I really appreciated that what happens is we're not introduced to this by the character speaking it. In the mind, he goes like, oh, he must have type O blood. And then what happens is when all the other characters feel like, well, if Midoriya is free, that must mean it must be a blood type thing. And they all figure it out. So much better than typical, villain comes out, goes like, haha, you'll never defeat me as long as you don't have a blood type that isn't comparable with me. You'll be okay. He has a blood type, just like that whole thing, cliche stuff. So I appreciate that, because I'm like, yes, I know you have to let the audience know what's going on, but yes, do it through mind thoughts. Let us know what the characters are thinking and have the other characters be smart to where they have to figure it out. I love stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Just on that note, I like that it shows that these boys are smart too. Like, they figured it out. They weren't just like, what are we going to do? And he's like, haha, you'll never defeat me unless you have blood type. Oh, so I like that they were like, what is it? I mean, throughout the whole show, you see that Deku's really smart. Like, he'll figure it out. He's writing notes in his book, and he's thinking about it. Like, okay, if I do this, and it's just like that. So he's always like, his mind is always on overdrive, and I like that they figured it out like that. And like I said, it just shows how smart these boys are.
For sure, and I love that the villain is smart, because let's talk about Stain. This guy was tremendous. The animators really did a great job to convey how skilled he was in this fight. Like, if it was a one-on-one fight, he would have destroyed these guys, I'm for sure. But by it being 3-on-1, that's why they gave him trouble. And they said he wasn't used to 3-on-1 fights, because this guy so skillfully was throwing his knife around, and just every single time you thought they had him, boom, he's cutting through the ice, boom, he's cutting through the fire, boom, he's jumping over Midoriya, boom, I'm like, wow, this guy just like throwing the blood. He's like nearly getting a cut, nearly getting the lick off their blood. Like, wow. I'm gonna say this, is that a blessing or a curse? Because since My Hero Academia is based loosely in our world, the real world, and basically he has to lick blood in order to paralyze his opponent, and given all the heroes he's killed, man, that doctor visit, gosh, how high of a risk is he for getting a blood transfer disease? What do you think? Is it a blessing or a curse to have that? Because I'm like, you don't know what any of these heroes got how many blood has he licked? He's got to have something. He may, or like, if he's not, he's got to be the luckiest person on the planet, because who's more likely to have a blood fight than the heroes who have to defend? Like,
that's saying. Gross. No, for real. That's ew.
Yeah, when I was saying, like, man, I'm like, that would be a curse if that's you might as well not even use your quirk. And thankfully he's a good fighter. I'm like, wow. But I guess they didn't put that much thought into it, but I guess it didn't matter. But he's a villain anyway. But yeah.
Oh. Well, you kind of brought that up. I like what you said, where you were like, oh, well, thankfully he's a good fighter. And I think that a lot of the pros do that, where it's like, even Aizawa. So he's the teacher, right? Where it's like, yeah, he can stop your quirk, but if that's all he did, you defeat him like that, like quickly, So I like that. It's like, okay, well, he's a good fighter. He uses those ropes and everything. So he uses other things where it's like, okay. And then the same thing with Stain, where it's like, all right, yeah, he can kind of like momentarily stop you if he has your blood type, but that can't be it. Like, he has to expand on that. And I like that the pro villains, I guess, and the pro heroes have like something else going for them other than just their quirk. And I think that's what the kids have to learn too. Where they've told it to Todoroki, they're like, you rely too much on your quirk. Like, he uses ice, he barely uses fire, but he mostly uses ice, and it's like, okay, well, you need to learn something else. What if you can't use your quirk? You have to be able to fight. You have to be able to do something else,
Glad you brought that up. You brought it up in the last podcast, and yeah, it was a nice callback. Once again, Stain did get up close to Todoroki and said, yeah, you use your quirk too much. You rely too heavily on your quirk. And thankfully, Iida, and I love the flashbacks, how they were showing Iida why he was had such a big bond with his brother, and his brother basically is All Might to him. What All Might is to Midoriya, that's basically what I got the sense of his brother and the way he encouraged Iida. And Iida he starts because he was even so blinded by his rage and everything, and he even admits that the hero killer was right, kind of what he was saying, and now he's like, this friends, I love how they won't abandon Iida, and because he's like telling him just get out of here, and it's like these clearly gonna die if they're not there. And Iida finally gets back up, and him and Midoriya hit Stain with a tremendous combo where they both are able to punch. I think he punches him in the face, and then Iida kicks him in the ribs. And I love how they both are like, I just need my leg, I just need my head. And Todoroki is using his fire to keep him at bay and burn him. And I think he eventually falls onto the ice and is knocked out. And they were ready, like, let's get up, keep on fighting. Like, oh, he's out. I love the urgency, but they got him better than they thought. So I loved it. They really made you convey how hard they had to fight to survive this. This fight was tremendous. Love it. I definitely think it goes down in history as one of the best all-time fights in My Hero Academia. Any final thoughts you got on the big fight here with Todoroki, Deku, and Iida and their indie sequence and how they were able to knock out Stain?
No, I mean, pretty much like you said, I just liked how it was like, you really see them fight. Like, I had that urgency as I was watching, like, wow, if you slip up, you're dead. It's not just like, oh, you lost the battle. It's like, you're dead, So I liked watching it. And as they were fighting, like, you can feel like the panic that they were feeling, So I like you said, I just really liked that it was really showing that they were giving it their all.
Right, for sure. And then we come towards the end, and I have been waiting so long to talk about this. So, obviously, they get rid of all the Nemus, and I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. Oh, I'm off today. the Nemus, whatever. But yeah, we get, of course, Shigaraki sees his plan fails. We see Endeavor in action and things. And I forgot to mention that Todoroki in that fight, too. He really comes to grips. We see, I think they talk more about how his mother forgave him because he took the time to finally talk to him, and it really showed you how what you saw in that last arc mattered with Midoriya, how he was able to, him and Midoriya were able to work together. So it shows you that their fight really helped make Todoroki into getting into finding a better place. He's now more at peace with himself. He's at peace with his mother, and even though he said he would probably never forgive his father, he understands that, hey, like Midoriya said, just because he's his father's son doesn't mean he has to do what his father wants. He does it because, do make this quirk your own, and that's why he's like, I can learn a lot from my father. I don't have to necessarily agree with him and even like him, but hey, at the end of the day, he is the number 2 hero. I can learn from it. I really love that aspect, once again showing what we mattered. So before we get to the ending here, anything you want to add on about like the Todoroki, how they played back, how he has now become a better person from where he was in the last arc?
I don't know. I feel like you said it pretty well. Just in general, yeah, where it's like, even when you first meet Todoroki, he has like this arrogance about him, like, no, I don't care, like, he doesn't want to talk to anybody, he's not here to make friends, like, he's just gonna, and then you just slowly see him progress as a character. And like you said, where it was like, okay, yeah, I might not like my father, but I could still learn something from him. Like, it's just showing how they're growing up as because they're just kids, right? So they're finally cool. Like growing up and like developing, and yeah, I like that they showed that.
Awesome. Now, here's what I've been wanting to talk about for the longest. Stain's defeat. Is it anticlimactic? So let me get into this here. So Stain, of course, becomes awakened again, breaks through the bandages. He actually kills the Nomu that was after Midoriya, and then he keeps Midoriya pressed down, and Endeavor sees him. And at this one, I'm like, oh snap, it's about to go down. I'm thinking this is gonna be Endeavor's moment, because we've heard so much about him being the number 2 hero. I'm thinking he's about to have a really epic moment, like when at the end of season 1, when All Might just went roughshod all over the Nomu. I'm like, well, let's see what Endeavor's all about. And so this is where we get Stain has an awesome line. I transcoded from the Funimation dub, when he's all like, "Come on, just try and stop me, you fakes. There is only one man, and I'll let kill me. He is a true hero. All Might is worthy." I'm like, oh snap. And then he gets this intense aura, and everyone is in fear, even Endeavor. And I'm like, whoa, is this guy about to have some huge power up that even Endeavor, the number 2 hero, is startled? And I'm like, what's about to go down? And then it stops, and he's out. He's knocked out, standing up on his feet. And the animation, for some reason, they must have had to save the animation budget, because for some reason his fabric is paused in the air. And we learn that basically he had a broken rib that pierced his lungs, making him unconscious. And that is the end of Stain. And I was like, when I first watched this in Japanese, I'm like, that's anticlimactic. I'm like, how do you build up to the freaking number 2 hero being afraid? Like, I want to see what he's about to do. But I understand where they were going with the story, is that he basically succumbed to his own hatred. The man had so much hatred in his heart, and that's what happens in real life. People who just they put all their energy towards all this hatred, they can cause their own basically destruction, and that's what he did basically with himself. So I understand what they were going for narratively, and I did appreciate it a little bit more in the English when I watched it again in the Funimation dub as my second time. But yeah, it's like I'm kind of mixed. I kind of feel like it's a bittersweet ending, because it also feels like, and they said even at the end, it wasn't a cork that took him down, but kind of like his own hatred. Once again, going back to WWE and wrestling, this would be a end where people will be like, how come they couldn't give anybody the rub? Like, almost like, how come Midoriya couldn't get the rub? Or how come you couldn't give the rub to put over the number 2 hero? Like, nobody got defeated. It's one of those endings where the villain was so strong, he was taken out by his own hatred or his own power and stuff, and nobody gets the big win from winning. And it's like, I would have loved to see somebody win, but I get where they were going narratively from it, and I've seen this before in Rurouni Kenshin. There's a big villain, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, but there's a villain where, once again, there was a villain in Rurouni Kenshin where Kenshin was about to beat him, but he still wasn't enough. But the villain succumbs to his own basically to his own illness, and it's like, wow. So we leave where it's like the hero wasn't strong enough to get the job done. Instead, the villain kind of took himself out, and it's like, I don't know. I kind of find it bittersweet. So I love the narrative of it, but I still wish there would have been a more climactic end. That's my thoughts on it. What was your thoughts on the ending of The Hero Killer?
Yeah, that's funny, because I didn't look at it like it was anticlimactic. I kind of looked at it like where, yeah, you're right. He just kind of just fell, and you're like, oh, okay. But the build up to that, it kind of made you like, again, because everybody was so terrified suddenly, like, oh my gosh, like, he's going to come for us, he's whatever. And then obviously it dropped, but it built up that tension in us. Whereas when I was watching it, to me, it felt like this harbinger of evil. Like, listen, this aura, this feeling you're getting from this guy, it's going to be so much worse. There's so much more to come. Like, even if it's not from Stain, there's more evil to come. So it's like, okay, yeah, Stain's leaving. Oh, okay, he fell. Anticlimactic. All right. But you know what? There's something evil lurking behind, where it's like his idea hasn't gone away. Where it's like this, just like chaos, where it's just like, okay, well, are you worthy? Oh, you're not. Like, I don't know, like that feeling of like just that there's more evil to come. That's the feeling I got from it. So even though he just collapsed, I wasn't like, oh, what a letdown. I was like, man, what battle are they going to have to fight next? This is going to be so much worse. That's the feeling I got. So honestly, I was okay with it. But I can see why you saw it as anticlimactic.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you gave a good perspective on that and everything. Yeah, like I said, I've kind of warmed up to it. And yeah, we see later on, continuing My Hero Academia, that Stain's ideals is still a huge part in everything, and it becomes a big part of the whole world. So I really love that aspect of it, showing that he mattered. He wasn't just some a handful of episode type character that was like filler and everything. So that was really awesome. So we conclude this arc anime only. There was an anime arc, episode 32, I believe, where they focused on Floppy because she was such a popular character. It had a nice emotion. It was pretty cool. I thought the filler episode. Did you have anything to say about the filler episode? I thought it was nice. I mean, like it's not a filler that I thought kind of wastes time.
Yeah, I would say I didn't hate it. But that being said, I don't know if we talked about it before, but I never really got the hype.
Of her, right?
Yeah, I never really got the hype with her.
Review you did, yeah.
Yeah, so when I saw her, I'm like, oh, okay, so they're adding an episode. But I don't hate her or anything. Like, if they added a whole episode of Mineta or whatever, I'd be like, oh my God, here he is again. Like, but if it was her, I'm like, okay, so it was interesting enough to watch. And even, yeah, what she was doing with her in her internship and stuff. So it was cool to see. But that being said, yeah, I didn't hate it. It was, in terms of filler, it was actually kind of nice.
Yeah, I just remember the captain making this face where he was trying to appear cute, and like I guess one person thought he was or wouldn't say it, but yeah, the arc ends with an emotional moment in the hospital between Iida, Deku, and Todoroki, where they basically all look at their ideals. I think they were apologizing and everything. So I thought it was a really nice moment, way to wrap things up and everything overall. Did anything stand out to you about that last emotional moment they had there?
Just honestly, the voice acting in English. I didn't hear the Japanese version, but I'm sure it was just as good. But yeah, just in English, when Todoroki's having like this existential crisis, and they're talking to him, and he's just like, "What is it? Like, why do I keep hurting people's hands? Like, I'm the hand crusher, And then like the voice actor for Deku and Iida, they're like, "The hand crusher!" Like they're like laughing about I don't know. It was just like such a
they thought he was trying to be funny, but keep serious. But I think he legit was actually trying to legitimately ask questions, right?
To me, it didn't sound like they thought he was. They were just laughing because it was funny.
Oh, I got you.
Man, am I cursed? Or I don't remember how he said it, but he was just like, "Am I the hand crusher?" And they're like, "The hand crusher." So they're like laughing at him, like as if like, "Dude, relax." Like, of course not. But it was just funny. Like to me, it's just. Again, it's just a bunch of kids in that moment, just like laughing at each other. Like, I don't know. I just really liked that moment. I just thought it was really funny. But like I said, like voice acting wise, I think that the voice actors just really nailed it. And I was laughing. Like I rewinded that part because I was like, I love it. It was cute.
For sure. Speaking of voice actors, Hero Killer Stain, Japanese voice actor was, I pronounce this, Go Inao, and English Robert McCollum. I thought they both did a tremendous job with the voice acting. I loved it. Once again, I can't praise it enough. So I wanted to just give some respect over there to them. And so now we move on to the final portion of this arc, which I feel is kind of disconnected because the hero killer is already defeated, but it is technically a part of this arc, so we shall review it. And that is the Reshu training race, basically, where they had to go through and Reshu. So here, basically, Deku was the standout, basically using all his training from Gran Torino, and Bakugo's getting angry and jealous because while he was busy basically them trying to keep his hair down and teach him some manners, Deku was out here improving like crazy and having real experience fighting with a top villain and stuff like that. But unfortunately, I think Midoriya is not careful on how to stick the landing at over 5%, so he ends up crashing and burning, and surprisingly it's Hanta that wins the race, and Midoriya ends up coming in last. So what did you think about the Reshu training? I just love the whole dynamics. It kind of reminds me of Goku and Vegeta, just to be honest, like Vegeta realizing, what, Kakarot can do Super Saiyan 3? All this training while I was stuck here? Like, just stuff like that it reminds me of. Hey, surprise, Hanta wins, but I don't know if it really amounted to anything much for him, but yeah, I love how they showed all the training was really coming along. What you think about the Reshu race?
Oh yeah, I mean, like you were saying, I felt for Bakugo though, where he was watching, he's like, how is it that he got like so much better and I've stayed the same? Like he was getting so frustrated with it, and I get that. Where Bakugo, what did he really learn? I don't know, other than to like, hey, you can't always explode, and hey, fix your hair. Like I don't know. So I feel like maybe Bakugo really didn't feel like he learned something that was useful as obviously as Deku, he sees that Deku improved somehow, where he's like, wow, like he isn't breaking his legs now over, this and or his hands and all this stuff. So I feel like just in general, I felt that like when Bakugo saw him and he was frustrated, I felt that.
Of course you would, being such a big Bakugo fan, right? Whereas me, I'm like, the guy got what he deserved. He put himself there. If maybe he didn't show maybe he showed better manners, he would have been something that would have been able to improve his skills and everything. Therefore, let's move on to the next part. So All Might gives a history lesson. This is where we learn about One for All. Basically, that it was a power that was passed down from generation to generation, and then the creator of the quirk was the ability to pass it on to others. But then we find out it fell into the wrong hands, and after generations of wrongdoing and everything failing, it eventually ends up in the hands of the person that All Might ended up defeating All for One. And then All Might basically believes that he's back, All for One, which eventually, we found out, of course, and leading to the League of Villains, and he's leading the League of Villains. But Midoriya, he's prepared to fight. He tells All Might that he knows he'll be right by his side, and in a very heartbreaking moment, All Might ends up he ends up saying to himself in his mind about Midoriya that he will not be by his side when that time comes. Epic foreshadowing. I enjoyed the backstory. It was great to have some backstory on this thing, and just really preparing where we eventually know season 3 ends up going and stuff. We learned a little bit more about All Might and All for One. So yeah, I really enjoyed the backstory. I thought it was intriguing in the generation past. What did you think about the backstory for this power?
I mean, yeah, pretty much like how you said. It was interesting to hear how it came out, like how it came to be. And then, yeah, I think that foreshadowing is just scary, where he's just like, oh, like, unfortunately, like, you're going to have to do this, And he doesn't actually say that to him, but just in general, like, it makes me scared for Deku. Like, can you imagine, like, you have this power that it's all brand new, and then suddenly you're going to face some great evil, and you're not going to have anybody on your side. It's just going to be you, like that was like, oof, that feeling just like.
And you like the scenery. Yeah. I don't think they were not even playing music in this scene, or they were playing really low key music, and it's the sun setting, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's like a Mufasa and Simba moment. Eventually my time will rain down as king, and you will be, like that. And of course I'm talking about the 1994 version.
Of course, the best
story. And I've seen both versions, but anyways, moving on to My Hero Academia. So the final scene where we left off with the hero killer arc, we learned basically that the doctor keeping All for One alive is his student, and he is pleased that the hero killer has gone viral, which is I mentioned in the last podcast, is that I really like that they make a factor that means something, knowing that it will inspire other villains to join the League of League of Villains and everything. League of Nations. Wow, you can tell my mind's in wrestling. There was a faction where they got like 4 different foreign wrestlers and called them the League of Nations. My mind's all in wrestling there. Thus, we learn he is preparing Tomura Shigaraki to take over as leader. It is with that All for One believes All Might will fall, and peace basically is coming to a violent end. So that's where the last arc ended up and everything. So yeah, I thought that was pretty good. How'd you like this? We're getting more and closer to All for One. Like every arc, we're getting closer and learning more and more about this villain.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, obviously it was interesting to hear about, and yeah, because for a while Shigaraki, you don't really get who he is yet. Like, I'm like, okay, yeah, so you want evil things. That's great, cool. But then, like, you start learning, oh, okay, like, so he was being, like, kind of, like, primed by this other guy, like to kind of take over. And yeah, and then, obviously, like I said, even before with All Might, I didn't like All Might feel, like, that feeling where he's like, I won't be by your side in the final fight. I'm like, ooh. And then now it's like, oh, it's going to come like, All Might's going to fall, and piece is coming to a violent end. I'm like, ooh, like it's like, again, like that harbinger again, where it's like it's foreshadowing. There it is. It's foreshadowing that this evil is coming, and you're kind of like feeling it on the back of your neck, like, oh, here it comes, So yeah, I'm definitely liking it so far.
Yeah, great way to end the arc too. Once again, like I said, just letting us know that that the hero killer's motives matter, and I really like that because that actually plays into real life. Like, how many times do you see on the news the media likes to glorify all these horrible things, and you just gotta imagine there's copycats out there that look at this stuff and they're like, oh snap, maybe I can get away with that too, and everything. So a really great way to play off of real life and add it into the anime. I felt that was really well done, and that concludes our podcast for the hero killer arc and everything. A really short arc, but I thought it made a great impact. We'll be back next week with another podcast where we're going to review the final exams arc. So that wraps up season 2. In the meantime, here are our plugs. Hey, this is SonGoshuaku
and Rebecca RoseGold.
For more of our content, click the links here in the video. Plus, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to both our channels so that way you are notified as soon as our content is released.
Also, in the description and pinned comment below are the links to all of our social media platforms.